Hey guys, back on the YouTube video. Today it's going to be a talk about video, and that is I'm going to be talking about the two main knives I've always carried and why do I carry them. And because a lot of people have asked me, why do I carry a classic 110 among the other varieties of buck knives that you can carry? And why do I carry a classic 119 even though among the other ones you can carry? And for starters, I am a classic guy. I love old school styles. I always have. And plus, it's just a design that I've stuck with over the years because I've carried multiple different types of knives over the years, and just these are the ones that stuck with me. And like for starters, one of the things that people most commonly say is you can't open a 110 one-handed. Yes, you can't, but yes, you can at the same time. And the reason I'm saying that is because a brand new 110 straight out of the factory is going to be relatively stiff. Like this is a brand new one I just recently started carrying, and it's still somewhat stiff. Like this one, you can't open one-handed. Even if you do this, you have to literally throw it really hard in order to let the weight of the handle open it. And a 110 is basically like a lot of things. You have to break it in to get it to do what you want. And again, this is one that I've been recently carrying. Now, when you get my old one out, this is the one I retired last year. And this one I can actually open with one hand because it's so smooth, and because I've broken in a bunch of times, I can just simply take my thumb and do that. Or I can simply let the weight of the handle, see? Because these, and of course everyone knows I always make sure all my knives are well oiled and cleaned and everything, and I use a special nitrate oil that a friend of mine gave me. One drop of this loosens these up without a problem. But even with that oil, you have to break these in. And it took me almost 2 months to get this as loose as it is now because I worked with it. I used it for basically everything. And one of the reasons I love carrying these is for, here's one of them, the brass. A lot of people love the aluminum, love the stainless steel, the nickel silver, all good materials. Don't get me wrong. But the reason I love the brass is because it balances the whole knife out. And what I mean is like this right here. Very well balanced. I could balance this right on my finger and twirl it in my hands without a problem. Because one of the things a lot of people don't know about me is when I carry a knife, I want it well balanced. I don't want it front heavy, back heavy, any kind of heavy. I want it balanced. That's one of the main things about these that I like doing. The 119's no exception. Same thing. It's balanced right at... Sorry about that, guys. It's balanced almost right at the guard, which is exactly where I want it. So that's one of the reasons I carry these is because they're well balanced. The quality, I mean, I can't speak enough of their quality because it's great. But yeah, a 110 is one of those things you have to break in order to get the looseness you want. Again, a brand new one, you can't just take these for a week and actually break them in that fast. To get the full experience, you do need to carry for one of these at least a year, in my opinion. Because as you can see, a modern, brand new one, fresh from the factory, yeah, you can barely open this one-handed. You just have to keep gripping it until it opens so you can use your other hand. Now, with a 110 that you've already broken in, you don't really need to do that much, as you can see. But that's basically my point is I love carrying these because it's a style I like, and one of the main reasons is I go outdoors a lot. I work outside a lot. I do a lot of stuff outside, and when I'm carrying this, I don't want to risk it corroding while I'm working. And that's one of the reasons I love the brass is it does not corrode. It'll tarnish, but it will not corrode. You've seen a lot of very bad condition 110s on my channel where the blades are totally rusted out, but the handles are in pristine shape still. They're still usable. And that's what I love about brass is, yeah, the steel may rust away, but the brass itself will remain. And that's what I like to count on because I can get this wet, and yes, I may leave it for an hour or two, but that'll be fine because then I can instantly clean it, get it nice and cleaned, and re-oil it, and there you go. So there's that reason. And the 119 is a similar reason. The reason I love it is because the aluminum, again, does not tarnish. It will not rust. It will tarnish, but it won't rust. The same with the plastic handle, and the blade is one of my favorite styles. And on top of that, I love the curve of the blade right here because sometimes I'm not afraid to do this. I can take the tip of the blade and get into certain areas that I can't get into with a normal straight blade. and that's my particular favorite among this. And again, I love the handle because of its slimness. It goes from small here all the way up to larger, so it really grips good into my hand. And again, I could grip it like that and still use it. And again, it's very well balanced. That's one of my main things, is it has to be well balanced in order for me to carry it. I don't want a knife to be too light or too heavy. I want it to be in the middle. And I wouldn't say these weigh a pound like some of my friends would say, but I would say these do weigh a little bit, which is what I like, because when I'm carrying these on my belt, I do want these to feel like I'm carrying these. I don't want these to be so light where I forget I'm even carrying them. I don't want to do that. I want it to be light enough to where I can carry it without a problem, but heavy enough to where I know it's there and I need to grab it. Now, for instance, luckily I got a scale right here I was able to borrow. Get you guys a close up. Turn this thing on. 110. Weighs 7.4 ounces just by itself. So just right under a pound. A 119. Oops, sorry, I got to reset the scale. A 119. 7.8 ounces. So yeah, like I said, they're both right at the right weight that I like. My apologies. And again, a 110 is one of those things you have to break in order to get it the way you want it. Because a brand new one, yeah, it's going to be relatively stiff out of the package. You would expect that. Oiling it and taking care of it and using it, you'll get it to where this one is, where it's so loose you can easily open it without a problem. And there's still no blade play. This one is a little bit looser, but there's no blade play. Maybe a little bit, but you would expect that from a folding knife. But as loose as this thing is, I can still not make the blade move. Just a tad hair, it will move. But yep, and among the knives I've carried over the years, I mean, I've had a few good ones. Like, for instance, I used to carry one of these bad boys because I had the same problem a lot of people do, is opening knives one-handed. And that was when I started carrying one of these bad boys, and it just kept opening in my pocket, so I eventually retired it. And then I started carrying a knife similar to this, a little baby Boker. This is the police model. Similar reasons, it kept opening in my pocket, and I just didn't like a half serrated blade because I've never had the need to use one. Because if a blade is good and sharp, you don't need serrations. And then I even carried one of these. This is a Ganzo that a friend of mine gave me that basically resembles the PM2 by Spyderco. Again, great knife, no problem about it, but I've never been a fan of the access lock right here. I do love the thumb hole because it makes it easier to open, but it's just not my style. And then I even carried this Spyderco that a friend of mine gave me. You can see it's still dirty because I do still use these here and there. But I've never been a fan of the frame lock that much either. And then, of course, everyone who's been a little kid will always know these Swiss Army Victorinox knives. I used to carry this all the time, but it became too heavy and I just didn't like carrying it anymore, so I eventually retired it. And then I even carried one of these bad boys. This is a Japanese OTF. Again, beautiful knife, nothing to say there. But I've never been a fan of carrying knives like this because this one's way heavier than the 110. It's way heavy. This thing probably weighs at least a pound more. So there's that. And yes, I have attempted carrying the 110 light. And beautiful knife, nothing wrong with that, but it's just not my style. I prefer carrying the original because there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, yeah, you see a lot of people buy high-end knives, high-end this and that, but one of the things I always like to say is you don't need to buy a high-end knife to get a good knife. These knives are still relatively cheap. I mean, they're about $60 to $70 if I'm right on Buck's current website. I could be wrong, so check that out for yourself if you want to buy one. But no bells or whistles. Just simply buy it, and it's a workman's knife. And that's one of the things I've always liked is knives that don't have any bells or whistles that you can just buy and use the crap out of and still bring it to work the next day. And that's what I love about Buck is that's their thing. That's their thing. All their knives, no matter how expensive, are meant to go to work. And that's what I love about them. I mean, this I could beat the darn out of and still bring it to work the next day. And I've also even carried this kind of Victorinox. This was my first one that my father gave me. I still occasionally use it here and there, but I don't carry it that much anymore. And when it came to fixed blades, here was one of the first ones I carried. This is a Victorinox paring knife that I modified. And a friend of mine made me this sheath for it. Great knife. I carried it for a couple of years, but I just didn't like because it was too light, and I would sometimes forget I'm even carrying it. And that was one of the reasons I stopped carrying it. And then this was my very first fixed blade, the one that I made myself. Again, the size that I like and the right weight, and it's well balanced. But just wanted one with a guard. And then, of course, I carried one of these for a little while, a Mora. And these are good, no question about that. But again, just not my style, and I just prefer ones with actual belt loops, so that way you know they're not going to come off unless you accidentally tear them off. And then I even carried one of these for a while. This is a Camillus military knife I used to carry, and held an edge beautifully, no complaints, but again, the weight of it, I just didn't like about that. And then most people will be shocked, but I even carried one of these for a little while. This is a stainless steel Japanese butterfly knife. I used to carry one of these all the time. I know how to flip them relatively well, but again, just didn't sit well with me. So that's why I eventually retired it. And I've debated carrying the 112 light, which is this one right here. And I've debated carrying it, but it's just, like I said, it's just not my style. I prefer the original style with no bells or whistles, just the working man's knife, and that's what I like about it. So again, my point of this video is, yeah, when you buy a brand new 110 straight from the factory, it's going to be relatively stiff. You're going to have to break it in first, because as it was from the factory, you can't open it one-handed. Unless you basically, like my buddy's video where his friend took it and went like that and flicked it, which is good, you can do that, but with one that's relatively stiff as this, you don't want to risk this accidentally going out of your hand and hitting somebody. So it's best to do that when you actually broke the 110 in relatively good, and that way you can get it the way you want it. Because when a 110 has been broken in and used, you can open it one-handed without a problem. And of course, like I said, it has to be well balanced, and that's why I carry these, is they're well balanced. I love the metals that are used in them, and I love the fact that there's no bells or whistles. They're just a regular plain Jane model that you can buy and take to work the next day, and that's what I like. And I love the custom buck knives, ain't no question about that, but I still love the regular plain Jane, no bells or whistles, just stick it in your pocket and take it to work the next day. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and that's the reasons why I carry these, and I hope you guys enjoy and learn something, and as always, stay sharp and keep collecting.